Hello world, Cozzy here with this week's roundup of Geek Movie news. Now there's been a lot of movie news come out this week, so this is going to be a long episode. So let's get straight into it. Okay, first up this week, we've got some news coming out of Warner Brothers about The Twilight Zone. Now, The Twilight Zone, a very successful science fiction TV series, started in the late 1950s. It's had incarnations right up to the present day, and it's being adapted by Warner Brothers for the big screen. Now, it seems that they are in negotiations with Cloverfield and Let Me In director Matt Reeves to direct the movie, and that the screenplay is going to be written by Jason Rothenberg. Now, unlike the 1983 movie of The Twilight Zone, which was an anthology of short stories that linked in together, this is going to be one story that covers the whole movie. It's going to be apparently an epic sci-fi thriller, and it's going to try and keep the original eerie feeling of the TV series. For me, this might be a really good thing to do. It's a name, The Twilight Zone, that a lot of people know and recognise. If this film can keep the feeling of the TV series, which is obviously hugely popular, then we could see a series of Twilight Zone movies. We might even see a relaunch of a Twilight Zone TV series. So Warner Brothers, you've got to handle this one with care. If it does well, I'll let you off making this one long storyline and not an anthology of short stories, which I personally would have preferred. Okay, next up, another Warner Brothers project. Something that's spent the last 3 years in the wilderness, and that is Elfquest. Now, Elfquest, for those of you who don't know, Warner Brothers picked up the rights to it 3 years ago. It is a comic book series, started in the late 1970s, ran right up through to the sort of late 2000s across a number of different comic book publishers, and it is a fantasy setting. It's about a community of elves and other fantasy creatures that live on a planet similar to Earth that has 2 moons. Now, there's a lot to go through with backstory, so I'm not going to bother with that. If you are interested in finding out more about Elfquest, then you go to the Elfquest official website. You can read every single issue of the comic book for free on that website, so you can start learning about this series even before the film goes into production. Speaking of the movie itself, it's picked up a screenwriter who's going to be rewriting the screenplay to this movie, and that is British director Joe Ahern, while Rawson Thurber, he's going to be directing it. So it's making some progress. No news on which characters from the series will be in the movie or who will play them as of yet, but this is definitely progress for a movie that's sat for the last 3 years in development. Okay, another Warner Brothers project that we're getting some information about this week is an adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand. Now, for those of you who don't know, The Stand was a book by Stephen King, published first in 1978. It is a very long book, 3 sort of stories that intertwined into each other, spread across the whole of the book. And Warner Brothers are looking to adapt this into an epic sort of big budget movie. Now, they're in negotiations with, and this may surprise some of you, Ben Affleck to direct this adaptation. Now, we all know with Stephen King adaptations, they can be really hit or miss. They can be huge successes in every way, or they can be completely terrible. But Warner Brothers believes that Ben Affleck might be the man to make this a huge success. Now, hold back your skepticism for a moment, guys. Affleck, for me, has been hugely impressive recently, both as a director and as a screenwriter. If you watched The Town, which he both wrote and directed, you should have been blown away by how good it was. Apparently, he is directing Argo, which is going to be absolutely amazing from the press that it's getting at the moment. So maybe he's stepping up his game. Maybe it's about time we forget that the guy was in Daredevil, which so many people despised, unless you saw the director's cut, which is a much better movie. And yeah, just give this guy a break. He seems to have good skills behind the camera. He's not a bad actor, and he seems to be a good screenwriter. So maybe he is the man to make Stephen King's The Stand a huge success at the box office. Okay, it really has been a busy week for Warner Brothers. This is another bit of news, and that is that their adaptation of Akira has finally been green-lighted, and it is going to go into production. It's already picked up a director in the form of Jean-Colette Serra, and there's also been some casting news. Some parts have been offered to Gary Oldman, been offered the part of the Colonel, and Helena Bonham Carter, who's been offered the part of Lady Miyako, and also Garrett Hedlund, he's been offered the part of Kaneda. So it's all sounding promising so far. We've already got a director locked in, we've got some actors offered parts, and actors I think who would really fit the parts that they've been offered. I'm a fan of the original anime. I have, since seeing the anime when I was very young, gone back and read the original manga. So yeah, let's see this do well. Hopefully, fingers crossed, Warner Brothers. A lot of people want to see this big budget adaptation of Akira be a huge success. Okay, next up, some exciting news for any fans of Battlestar Galactica out there, and that is that Bryan Singer is basically going to be making a big budget movie version of Battlestar Galactica. Now, the only thing that may worry fans of the newer series is that he apparently is going to completely ignore everything that happened in the new series and in Caprica. He may even go back to the roots of the series, looking at the 70s and 80s series of Battlestar Galactica. Now, for me, I grew up watching 70s and 80s series reruns on television. I was a huge fan of them. I've not seen much of the new series, but I can understand that people are going to be upset. Singer has been a huge success with projects that he's done in the past. I think we should give him the benefit of the doubt that this may be a huge success again, and maybe it'll reignite some interest in those original series that I think are fantastic. If they have aged a little bit due to the fact that they were made in the 70s and 80s, yeah, maybe you should go back and watch some of them. Singer's one of these guys. He doesn't like to leave much time between projects that he's working on, so I would guess there will be a lot of information out from him and from his camp about this in the very near future. So keep your eyes peeled, keep watching Geek Movie News to find out. Okay, some news both good and bad about Zombieland. Firstly, it seems screenwriters Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, they are looking to take Zombieland to the small screen, make it a half-hour comedy action TV series. It's going to be produced by both Fox and Sony Pictures Television, and yeah, we're going to hopefully get this in the very near future. However, if the TV series goes ahead and if it becomes a success, we won't see a sequel to the movie version of Zombieland. For me, I'm quite torn between this. I really look forward to seeing a series of Zombieland. I think it would work very well as a series, and if we had new characters, then why couldn't that overlap into a sequel to the Zombieland movie? It would build interest in the franchise, make people maybe want to go and see the movie and see what happens to those characters from the first movie and how they interact with the characters from the TV series. I know some people worry that taking TV to movie theatres can dilute it and maybe not make as much money, but I say if this is a success, do it. Make the TV series, make it a success, make a sequel to the movie. It's not that hard. You can double, triple the amount of money you would have made anyway. Okay, sticking with Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, they, as screenwriters, have been approached by Paramount, Hasbro and J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot to write the screenplay to Micronauts. Now, for those of you who don't know, Micronauts was a toy line that was released in the 1970s and early 1980s. It was hugely popular as a toy line and as a comic book series, originally produced by Marvel Comics into the sort of mid to late 80s. And a bit of backstory about it, it's set in the Microverse, where these micro people come together to form a team to stop an evil dictator called Baron Karza. So, really interesting concept, and not only could it make a lot of money on the big screen, but it could bring back a long dead toy line. Obviously, Hasbro are hoping that happens and that they can make a lot of money off this in the same way they have off the recent Transformers movies. Speaking of Transformers, after the revelation last week that Hasbro were in negotiations to make a Transformers 4, it now seems that they're hoping to make 4 and 5 and do them back to back. Now the reasons given for this back to back shoot is that obviously it will save money, and it will also mean that they can get 2 movies out in a reasonably quick turnaround time, so we won't have to wait 3 years between the 2 movies. They've even stated that filming could start in late 2012, early 2013, and we could see the first movie by the end of 2013, beginning of 2014. So yeah, they're really hoping to get these out quick, a really quick turnaround with Transformers 4 and 5. Casting-wise, Shia LaBeouf, he has said openly in interviews he will not return to Transformers. He thinks that the first 3 films finished off the character of Sam Spike Witwicky's storyline and therefore won't return. The Paramount Pictures, who obviously make these movies, they are in negotiations apparently with Jason Statham to be the main character of Transformers 4 and 5. Now that's a real big difference in the type of characters. Obviously Statham is an action star, and maybe that means we're going to get a change from the sort of storyline, human storyline anyway, movies we've had in the first 3. Maybe more action, hopefully more action between the Transformers. We know fans of the cartoon have been wanting to see a lot more of the robots. They should be the stars, not the humans, and maybe finally we're going to see that in 4 and 5. It's all speculation at the moment, but once anything is set in stone, obviously guys, I'll be letting you all know about it. Okay guys, sticking with Paramount Pictures, it seems that they are seriously considering making a Top Gun 2. Now, they have entered negotiations with the Thor and X-Men First Class writers Ashley Miller and Zach Stens about tackling the screenplay. No news yet on sort of casting. Will they go back to the original actors, or will they start with a whole new bunch of actors? I'm guessing as this is more of a sequel and a reboot, that we will see at least some of the original actors return. There's also some rumours that they seriously want Tony Scott to come back. He directed the first movie and they want him to come back and to direct this sequel. Now, there's a lot of fans of Top Gun out there. It was a great movie, and if this is handled right, then we might see a sort of reigniting the interest in this franchise. We could see a number of new Top Gun movies made in the near future. Who knows? But at the moment, early stages, Paramount are looking at making Top Gun 2. Some news this week that Solifist Films are in negotiations to pick up the forthcoming vampire graphic novel from Top Cow called In the Dust. Now, apparently the storyline is going to go a little bit like this. It's set in the 1930s in the Dust Bowl of America, where a government agent is investigating the disappearance of entire families from small towns due to these huge dust storms. What he finds is that the dust storms are actually a cover for huge groups of vampires to move in and obviously feed and kill the families in these small towns. He gets together with the remnants of Al Capone's gang and tries to stop the vampires reaching Chicago. So a really interesting and different take on vampires, really. I think, you know, government agents and gangsters in the 30s versus vampires, to me, seems like it could make a really, really interesting movie. We'll have to obviously wait and hope that it's also an interesting graphic novel. The writer of the graphic novel, George Maffei, he is going to be writing the screenplay for the actual movie, which is brilliant. I think we should see more screenplays, if not written, rewritten or edited by the actual comic book writers that the source material comes from. I think it gives these movies a lot more credibility, and kudos to Solifist Films for actually doing that. Let's hope that more companies realise that these guys are talented writers in their own right, and they should get a say on their characters and their franchises. Some news this week on Image Comics War Heroes. Now, Universal Pictures are in negotiations to pick up the movie rights to War Heroes, which is a 2008 miniseries that is as of yet unfinished by Mark Millar and Tony Harris. The basic premise behind the plot is that due to the huge amount of casualties in Iraq and Afghanistan, the American government starts to make soldiers with superpowers to go and fight the war on terror. If Universal are successful in picking up the rights to this movie, they want Thomas Dean Donnelly and Joshua Oppenheimer to write the screenplay. Those names may sound familiar to long-term viewers of the show because they are the two guys involved in writing the screenplay of Doctor Strange for Marvel. So no casting news, no director news as of yet. Very, very early stages, but yeah, Image Comics War Heroes could be hitting the big screen in the future. Okay, another Image comic book that has been picked up, this time for TV, not for the big budget movie treatment, is Memoirs. Now, Warner Brothers Television have acquired the rights to Memoirs, which has been described as a mixture of Twilight Zone and Twin Peaks. Those of you who don't know much about the comic book series itself, basically it's about a small town in America that everybody wakes up one day and they can't remember their lives. They can't even remember who they are. 3 years later, everything seems to be back to normal, and this fledgling journalist, he turns up and he wants to find out the truth about what really happened. And he meets one member of the community who says he remembers everything, while everyone else remembers nothing. So really interesting premise. I see this being the kind of sort of thriller sci-fi show that we've been lacking quite a lot on television as of late, since the likes of sort of Twin Peaks and the X-Files in the 90s. We really haven't had this kind of almost based almost in reality but with a sci-fi twist type show. So this for me could be a huge success if it's handled right. So Warner Brothers TV, you need to handle this right. If you haven't read the comic books, obviously you can go back and get the trades, read up, find out a little bit about Memoirs before it hits the small screen. Right, some casting news from the Expendables 2, and this time not adding people to the cast, but actually possibly losing a member of this huge ensemble cast, and that member is Mickey Rourke. He apparently is in negotiations to be in the film Psychopaths. Now, if he does get a role in Psychopaths, he won't appear in Expendables 2 because they will be filming at the same time, so there will be obviously filming conflicts. This, I know for fans of Expendables, will not be a good thing. He was one of the main cast members from the first movie, but it may be a good thing for this film as a whole. There are a lot of people involved in this movie, and losing one person isn't going to affect the overall product. It might actually give some of the other guys a little bit more screen time, a little bit more to say, a little bit more to do. So we just have to wait and see. But yeah, Mickey Rourke could very well be leaving the Expendables 2. Some casting news from the new Tarantino movie, Django Unchained, and apparently Joseph Gordon-Levitt is desperate to take a part in this movie. Now, he, for me, is a fantastic actor. He needs a lot of praise for the work that he's done in recent years, and I think it would be amazing to see what a director like Tarantino can get out of someone who obviously has huge ability in front of the camera. The only problem with this is the fact that Gordon-Levitt's new movie, which is called Premium Rush, will be released in cinemas around the time that Tarantino wants to start filming his new movie, Django Unchained. So there might be an issue there might be a conflict, and that might hold him back from taking up a role that, in my opinion, he wholeheartedly deserves in this new Tarantino movie. I'm guessing we'll find more out in the near future, so obviously keep your eyes peeled and keep watching Geek Movie News. Okay, some more casting news, this time for the Man From U.N.C.L.E, and that is that apparently Bradley Cooper has been offered the part of Napoleon Solo in the new adaptation of The Man From U.N.C.L.E. If he accepts, he will go directly from the completion of Paradise Lost, which he's working on currently, which should be finished in March, straight into filming the new Man From U.N.C.L.E. movie. And yeah, I think Bradley Cooper's the kind of guy that this movie needs. I think he could do really well in this sort of role. No new casting news for any of the other members of the cast as of yet. As I mentioned a couple of weeks back, there's up to 20 names that have been drawn up by the studios to play some of those characters famous from the TV series, and I guess negotiations are ongoing. Once there's some news, I'll let everyone else know. Some great news this week for fans of video games, and that is that it looks like Assassin's Creed is moving just that little bit closer to being adapted into a big budget Hollywood movie. Now, Sony Pictures, they are in negotiations with Ubisoft and Ubisoft's new motion picture division to co-produce an Assassin's Creed movie for the big screen. For me, I've played the first Assassin's Creed game, and I think that as a series it comes across already as a big budget sort of Hollywood movie. It's one of the only games very much similar to Uncharted that I can see very little needs to be done to produce a big budget movie that will make a lot of money. So, you know, you've got everything there. Please, Sony, don't mess this up. Don't make a Street Fighter, and whatever you do, don't go anywhere near Ubal. No one wants that. Punisher news this week, and it seems that Fox has bought an hour-long drama from ABC based on the comic book character The Punisher, expanding Marvel Studios' television division to 5 live-action series in production currently. Now, I'm a big fan of the Punisher movies, the last 2 in particular, not so much the Dolph Lundgren one, although it's very, very cheesy and quite funny to watch. And I think the character works better as an R-rated or 18-rated movie than it would in TV. That's just my opinion. But looking at what Fox wants to do with this could really take off. Okay, they want to take Frank Castle, the Punisher, and have him as a rising member of the police department, the New York Police Department in particular, who moonlights as a vigilante and hunts justice for those who the courts don't get justice for. Yeah, if you imagine it as Dexter with a cool costume and a lot more guns, that's what Fox and ABC are going for with this Punisher TV series. Interesting concept, not a huge fan of the changes, but if done right, it could be very, very interesting. Finally this week, how much do you want to see some footage from The Dark Knight Rises? Enough to pay to see a movie that maybe you wouldn't have bothered to see in the first place? Well, that's what both Warner Brothers and Paramount are hoping, because they've struck a deal that will see 6 minutes, basically a prologue to The Dark Knight Rises, be attached to the start of the new Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. However, it won't be on every print of the movie. It's only going to be on the IMAX prints of the new Mission Impossible movie. So, if you've got an IMAX theatre close to you and you want to see some of the new Batman movie in December, when this Mission Impossible film comes out, you can go along, you can watch a movie that maybe you wouldn't have gone to see anyway, and see 6 minutes of glorious Dark Knight Rises prologue in IMAX. Now, this, for me, is a win-win situation for both Warner Brothers and for Paramount. A lot of fans of the Dark Knight series, of Nolan's sort of Batman series, are going to go and see this movie that they might not have gone and seen otherwise, just to see this 6 minutes of the new Batman movie, which means more money for Paramount. Now, at the same time, if they see and like what they see, the IMAX version, there's more likely that they will pay the extra money to go and see the actual IMAX version of The Dark Knight Rises when it is released next year, which brings in more money for Warner Brothers. So it could really be a win-win situation for both companies. I am going to go and see this. I was going to go and see the new Mission Impossible film anyway, but I will now be hunting down the nearest IMAX theatre and going to see it in IMAX just because I really do want to see 6 minutes of The Dark Knight Rises to give me a taste of what is in store when it gets released next year. Okay guys, that's all for this week. As always, if you liked this video, down there is the like button. You can click on it and let me know that you like this video. The subscribe button, as always, is on my face. If you missed last week's Geek Movie News, then Shazam! It should just be there. If you missed my Red State review, then once again, using the power of that wizard Shazam, it should be right there. You can click out, you can watch those 2 videos. Enjoy. As always, down in the description box below, you click out is a link to my Facebook fan page. You can become a fan of me on Facebook and find out what's going on in the world of Geek Movie News and also the world of this channel. There's another review hopefully coming up in the next couple of days, so keep an eye on your subscription boxes. Share this video with everyone you know on all your social networking sites. If you've got some comments, if you've got something you found out, something you'd like to say, then as always leave a comment. Comment boxes are below. Until next time guys, au revoir.